Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sideline Warning, the show where sports takes are sure to go way too far out into the field. And here to recap this week's biggest and best sports stories are your hosts, Dave Adams, Leah Barrier, and Ben Foster.
Welcome back into Sideline Warning. It was a great week of Alabama sports after one of the most horrible weeks of basketball. Something good actually happened.
A horrible month of basketball.
A horrible month. Ben, I didn't let you in yet. You're not supposed to talk out of turn yet.
Sorry, I'm just so excited.
Well, look, okay. First things first. Ben, Birmingham, Adam, welcome back, Florida. There you go. Y'all are all in. You can talk now.
All right.
But first things first. Ben and Adam both want me to apologize for my harsh tone of unbuckling last week. I stand by my statement still.
So you're still unbuckled?
I'm still unbuckled. I told you at the end of last show, I'm going to stay unbuckled until Alabama proves to me that they are a contender. A 9 seed in the NCAA tournament doesn't prove to me that Alabama is a contender.
So can I ask you a question, Dave?
Sure.
You were on a cruise, right?
I was on a cruise.
Was there a sports bar on this cruise?
There was not.
Did you see Alabama play Auburn?
Well, if you want to call into question, Ben Foster, my Alabama fanness.
It's taking you too long to answer a yes or no question, Dave. I'm a little concerned about you.
I'm going to show you the proof of purchase where I purchased the ship's Wi-Fi so I can watch Alabama and Texas A&M. So Ben Foster, never again question my Alabama fanness.
I'm really glad you got some Wi-Fi.
You can ask me a question.
Did you watch Alabama play Auburn?
I couldn't watch Alabama play Auburn because I was on a private island and I didn't have any access to Wi-Fi.
Now the truth comes out. Now the truth comes out.
Hey, but I caught the highlights, and I will say this, where I was wrong. John Petty, you might not be a failure.
Hey, imagine that.
And can we also get a shout out to second half adjustments against Auburn, Dave?
We can get a shout out to second half falling apart of Auburn. I'm still not convinced that was a second half adjustment.
Are you kidding me? You really didn't watch the game then, because Alabama played exceptional defense in the second half, and they also were scoring like crazy in the Auburn game. Colin Sexton was unconscious.
Well, yes, I did see that Sexton was unconscious, and I apologize because I was in a private island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean where I had no access to Wi-Fi or cell phone access because I was not on the ship at the time. So I apologize that I was with my family.
I think you need to get your priorities straight, Dave.
Oh, Lord, this show's only been going for a couple of minutes, and it's already off the rails. Come on.
So let me ask you this then. I'll ask you another question. I promise won't be the same one a third time. So are you saying that Avery Johnson is 4 seconds and a layup away from being on the unemployment line in your mind? Or is he still there?
I'd say he's about 2 seconds away from being on the unemployment line because if I remember correctly, Sexton barely got that shot off, but he did. If Alabama hadn't have beat Texas A&M, I don't know if we say unemployment because I think that you're right. We ride what we can until we get a better facility and access to a better coach. But it won't be fun. It wouldn't have been fun. So I don't know. I would not. I'm still not a fan of Avery Johnson, guys. Nothing you can say is going to convince me.
When did you stop being a fan of Avery Johnson? Because I think you were an Avery Johnson fan at least at one point in the season, right?
Oh, I was. When I stopped seeing the huge strides made to be a better team. Towards the end of the season, in the middle of the SEC play, Alabama was playing all right. But then when they got to LSU and beyond, I didn't see any growth in the team towards the end of the season. And I'm still not convinced, even though Alabama made a decent run in the SEC tourney, I'm still not convinced that Avery Johnson's the guy to lead this program. I'm just not.
This is 2 years in a row he's gotten Alabama to the semifinal in the SEC tournament.
Right. And last year was
that's not the same as winning the tournament, but I mean that's something, isn't it?
It is something, but remember, last year SEC was down. This year the SEC is probably the best conference in the country.
Whoa, I don't know.
8 teams in the tournament.
The ACC got 9.
Well, the ACC always gets 9. Okay,
because they're the best conference in basketball.
Okay, fine. Throw the ACC out, and the SEC is the best. How's that?
You're making my job too easy today, man. I'm just gonna let you and Ben go at it.
Go ahead, Adam. I know you got something else to say.
No, I don't. I really don't.
Well, Adam, you can't stay out of this though. What's the best conference in basketball?
Oh, it's not the SEC.
Very good answer. Very good answer.
It's definitely not the SEC, and it's for me, Dave. And again, this isn't going to be the sideline warning against Dave today, but it's the language of we barely got the shot off, and last year was a fluke. I don't know that there's anything he's going to do that's going to be good enough, and I just want to hear you say it.
Okay, fine. Nothing Avery Johnson can do will be good enough unless he wins a national championship. Now, if Avery Johnson brings me a national championship at Alabama, then I will buckle the heck up, and I'll stay buckled until we don't win a game the next year. But I cannot say that Avery Johnson's a good coach right now. I can't, and I'm sorry. But Avery Johnson...
So he has to win a national championship for you to believe he's a good coach.
He has to at least be in the picture.
So if he makes a Final Four, he's not a good coach.
No. That's in the picture.
Okay, wait. What if he makes an Elite Eight? Is he a good coach?
An Elite Eight? Because are we going to say Mark Godfrey was a good coach?
I think Mark Gottfried's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's a good coach. He's good enough. Did you guys see the news today? He was hired by Cal State Northridge, a school that does not even have an athletic director.
I was going to say, what are they known for? Don't they have a good baseball program?
Yeah, if you have
that's Fullerton.
Fullerton is a baseball power, but if you have Cal State in your name, you're going to be pretty good at baseball because all of the Cal State schools are good at baseball. Cal State Northridge at different times has been reasonably good in basketball. In their whatever conference they're in, they've made the tournament before. So.
Well, I'll say this, David. I hear you, man. I share your frustration. I just want us to all, as quote unquote Bama Nation, to draw a line of this is what we call success in basketball. Because we know in football we don't even care if we didn't make it to the SEC championship game, make it to the national championship and win, and that's the litmus test, right? That's the standard.
Right.
What is the standard in basketball? Is it Final Four, Elite Eight, Sweet 16, make the tournament, make the NIT? I mean, I think all of us probably have, if you asked 1,000 Alabama fans, they'd all give you a different answer. Some just want to be competitive and some want to win the whole thing. But it's just when I look at Georgia, and I know we'll talk coaching later, but when we look at Georgia and you look at the list of candidates they've got, it's folks from Charleston and Rhode Island who are lesser seeds in the tournament than Alabama is or just above. And they're strong candidates for a job. And it's like, would we be happy to lose Avery Johnson to pick up somebody else who seeded a team in the champion or in the tournament the same spot that we are? I mean, it just seems like you're replacing a wheel with a wheel. You're not upgrading at all. So I think, again, he sold me over the last week. I think he was able to get him up and perform. And I think we have to, like we said last week, pull all the right things together before we're going to get a big name. Otherwise, I think 8-9 seed's the best we can hope for in the current situation. I don't think he could get us any higher, but I think that he could consistently get us there.
Okay, well, I think if you want to talk about what the standard is, Avery Johnson's already set the standard, not in what he's done, but in what he said. He said that there is an expectation to get Alabama to the Final Four. He didn't say he was going to do it in 3 years. But he said that the goal is to get Alabama basketball to where they can make it to a Final Four. And that's never been done before at Alabama. So the standard has been set. That's the goal that Avery Johnson has set. The same way that Nick Saban, you guys want to mix football metaphors, the same way when Nick Saban came, he said, I understand the expectation is to win national championships at Alabama. Avery Johnson says he wants the expectation to get to a Final Four. Now, I don't think that anybody thought this team was going to be Final Four caliber. I think people thought this team was going to be very good. I think at the beginning of the season, if you had asked me what I thought this team could do, I would have said I think this team could get to a Sweet 16. And
that's where I would have said. I would have easily said Sweet 16 just by what the hype of this team has shown. But when you and I watched this team live, Ben, in early December, I told you then.
The Mercer game. You're talking about the Mercer game.
The Mercer game, right. I told you then they are going to disappoint us in the postseason. And lo and behold, they've disappointed us up until this point.
They've overachieved in the postseason. They beat Texas A&M, and then they spanked Auburn. They have overachieved in the postseason.
Well, okay, the end of the regular season bleeding into the postseason. Alabama was basically limping into the postseason.
Alabama was on the bubble, and they won the clutch games they had to win to get themselves into the NCAA tournament. And that's not something to sneeze at.
It's not, but like I said before, Alabama has burned me more than once, and I'm not going to get my hopes up, hoping that Alabama can make a run into this, because if Alabama gets past their first round, they've got a buzzsaw and Villanova coming into it.
Yeah, it's going to be a major accomplishment just to win one game. Getting past Villanova is a very tall order. But if Alabama is able to beat an ACC school and play and hang with one of the best teams in the country, one of the 4 best teams in the country, that's going to be a major accomplishment. It's going to be disappointing because it's not a scenario where Alabama gets to the Sweet 16. But if Alabama is able to win one game here after having not even been to the NCAA tournament in 6 years, that's at least positive momentum, isn't it?
See, you say that, but then we also said that in 2007, when Alabama got into the first round and played Creighton close, but then Creighton came back and won miraculously because, what was it, the refs couldn't call a game, and Alabama couldn't shoot a 3 down the stretch. So do we say that was a step in the right direction because they didn't make the NCAA tournament for what, 11 years after that?
Well, I'll tell you, from my perspective, being in the tournament's good enough for me. And that may not align with the overall expectation of the fan base as a whole, but just being in the conversation, I think, is as good as we can expect right now. And if you think about just the mental distance and the facilities distance, we would have to jump to get from where we are today to, I mean, you look at who's probably going to make it to the Final Four. We are as good as a Duke, Villanova, Purdue. I mean, you think of those teams who really have a shot at it, and the distance between us and them seems to me to be insurmountable at the point that we're at right now. So I think if the overall goal is that, then great, let's keep doing this. And this is a step in the right direction to getting to the Final Four eventually. But this can't be the only thing we stay, satisfied with. And that's what tends to happen, it feels like, because you'd been talking about the fan base at all the games and stuff. Ben, it feels like that's what happens with us as we get there and we're like, okay, this is as good as we can expect. Next year, if we get back, we'll be happy again, and then we don't. And then we fall back and nobody cares about basketball again.
Yeah, Alabama's got to start raising expectations. The fan base has to raise expectations and hold the team to the standard. The team's got to play to that standard too. So all of those things have got to come together. But I think Alabama fans should at least be happy with where the team is, and if nothing else, be happy that they're 2-3 against Auburn. I mean, 2-1 against Auburn this year. 2 out of 3.
And what something I saw you say on Twitter last night, Ben, just for kicks and giggles, Alabama made it in the tournament 30 seconds before Auburn did.
Yes, somebody tweeted that out. They said Alabama made it into the tournament 30 seconds before Auburn, and I said 30 seconds. That's almost a second for every point that Alabama outscored Auburn in the second half of the game. Alabama outscored Auburn by 28 points in the second half of the game in their 81-63 victory over the Tigers.
Not attributed to any adjustments, though.
But there were no halftime adjustments made whatsoever. Hey! Speaking of which, speaking of halftime adjustments, can we talk just a few minutes about the drama after the game with Bruce Pearl getting a little upset?
I was about to ask you, how close were you? Because I think you made the trek up to St. Louis, didn't you?
I was not there for the Auburn game. I was there for the Kentucky game. I went up for the Saturday game, but not the Friday game.
Okay. So since I didn't get to see it, I've just seen some replays of it. And I just actually rewatched this on YouTube right before we had the Skype call this evening. It sounded to me like Bruce Pearl was acting like a little toddler.
Imagine that.
I know, right? So what I heard was that Bruce Pearl was trying to walk off the court, and Alabama's strength and conditioning coach was standing there. What's his name, Ben? I forget.
Lou Deneen.
Lou Deneen. Okay, Lou Deneen was standing there, and apparently somebody said Bruce Pearl said that Lou Deneen was standing there on purpose. Basically, he touched me, mommy, and then tried to push him out of the way, and then had to be physically removed from the court.
Yeah, if you go back and you look at some of the still photos of the video, I believe it was Aaron Suttles who made the joke that this was like the Zapruder film, how people were analyzing it. But if you look at it, Bruce Pearl has his head down. He's not looking where he's going, and he's dropping his shoulder right into Lou Deneen, Coach Lou. By the way, Coach Lou is also a great Twitter follow. If you need somebody to follow on Twitter, Coach Lou has some good comments. You got to check him out. But Coach Lou, I can tell he's standing there because I actually have met him a couple times. He's a super nice guy, incredibly friendly. So I kind of always watch what he's doing before and after the games. And it's a pretty standard thing that he kind of stands there like a bouncer after the game, like he's kind of playing like security guard. And he just kind of folds his hands, right in front of his stomach. He just kind of lets his hands hang there, maybe grabs his wrist. And so it looked like he was doing his pretty standard bodyguard thing where he just stands there and doesn't move. He kind of squares his legs. And I think Pearl just wasn't looking where he was going.
So he's spoiling for a fight probably after getting his butt kicked like that.
Well, think about what Bruce Pearl does, because Bruce Pearl is the ultimate carnival barker. He is going to try to amplify all the good things and downplay all the bad things. And by creating this scene, by causing this stir, it draws the attention on him and takes the attention off of his players who played a horrendous second half of basketball. And that's a very Bruce Pearl thing to do, is to draw all the attention to himself, make it all about him, and then, also relieve some of the pressure on his players because he's drawing the attention away from them. I think Pearl probably did it intentionally. That's just my guess. There's no way to prove that, but that's what I think happened. That's my theory.
So if Pearl did it intentionally, why is there not any backlash on Pearl really in the national media? I mean, I've just heard it talked about here in the States, but Pearl, I mean, people just say, oh, it's Bruce Pearl being Bruce Pearl. Wow, well, easy for me to say.
It's not like he threw a punch. He got feisty. He got angry after he bumped into Coach Lou, but I don't think he was, he didn't start anything more than a verbal altercation after the bump.
Right, but think about this, man. If you had a coach as fiery as Bruce Pearl, oh wait, we do in football. If Nick Saban had done anything like that, he would be Satan for the rest of the week. So why is the same attention not given to Bruce Pearl?
Well, I think
cares.
That's nice to think. I think Pearl gets a pass sometimes. It's true.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I watched it just right before we started. I hadn't seen the actual video of it, and I mean, it seems pretty innocuous from both of their perspectives. I mean, I think that he was probably too hot under the collar after losing, and he's in his own head a little bit too much there. But I mean, I agree. There should be somebody saying something other than just letting it pass. But at the end of the day, again, what does it change?
Right.
Well, it's a good thing that we didn't let it pass. We're providing a community service by attracting attention to this.
Well, exactly. So people need to listen more to Sideline Warning.
I like it.
We do these community service things just every now and then. We make sure people know that Bruce Pearl is fat and Bruce Pearl is a hothead. Just
a public service announcement. If you find yourself standing on a basketball court, after Auburn has given up a 10-point lead and lost by 18 points, if that's happening, you need to be, you can't have your blinders on. You've got to be alert. You've got to be watching. Bruce Pearl may try to steamroll you. So that's just a public service announcement.
Yeah, because he's fat. The more you know.
The more you know.
So he should have wide load across his back as he's walking through. Is that what you're saying, Dave?
That is. And this
he doesn't understand his clearance that he requires when he's walking across the court.
This show's already gone off the rails, gentlemen.
Well, we can't deny that Bruce Pearl's a large guy. What we also can't deny is the newest coaches coming into the SEC for next season are going to be considerably smaller than him. And there's a couple of schools that are already looking for coaches, Ole Miss and Georgia.
Well, and it looks like Ole Miss is zeroing in on their candidate. I believe today, Jim Dunaway from down in your neck of the woods, Ben, was reporting that it was 95% done that Middle Tennessee State's Kermit Davis was coming to Ole Miss to replace Andy Kennedy. What's your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I think it could be a very good move for Ole Miss. He's a great coach. He's been around for a while. He is patient. He's not a money-grubbing guy because he's worked for years to build Middle Tennessee State into a good basketball school. And I think it's a huge shame that Middle Tennessee didn't make it into the tournament because they played well, and former Alabama player Nick King did an outstanding job for this season. And so it's a shame for him, being a senior, that he doesn't get to play in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but I think you're looking at where Ole Miss is today, and taking a coach that's gotten his team into the tournament and actually won a few first rounders along the way. I think that type of step Ole Miss needs to take to start moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it is. But if you're an Ole Miss fan, and I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers here, it's kind of what I do. But if you're an Ole Miss fan and you look at his record in 16 seasons at MTSU, he's 393 and 234. He's a former Mississippi State guy. You know how bad that rivalry is. If you're an Ole Miss fan, are you happy about this hire? Knowing that there's a Thad Matta sitting there, that there's other coaches that kind of had their name linked to this program. I don't know. I'm not just ecstatic about this.
Well, I don't think Ole Miss is choosing Kermit Davis over Thad Matta. I think they talked to Thad Matta because it was in both the school's interest and Thad Matta's interest to start talking. But I don't think that Thad Matta was ever going to go to Ole Miss. And I think Kermit Davis is a good coach, and I think he's probably the best coach Ole Miss can get right now.
But Ole Miss does have a better facility. I mean, they just updated their basketball facilities. So I don't know. I think they could have held out just a little bit longer and maybe seen what small schools make a run in the tournament. I mean, they went after a guy who his team didn't make the tournament. They should have, but his team didn't make the tournament. I mean, you've got Dan Hurley sitting there now. His name is probably linked to UConn. You've got some other small schools out there that have good coaches. Why make this hire at this point in time?
I don't think Ole Miss could compete for a better coach. I think they had to strike right now because if they didn't get Kermit Davis, they might actually end up with an option that's not even as good as Kermit Davis.
I think all the gravity is moving to Georgia in the conference.
Oh, I definitely think so, and I think that's why Georgia's talking to Thad Matta, and Thad Matta moved on from Ole Miss. I don't think Thad Matta was ever going to really consider going to Oxford, Mississippi. I think Thad Matta wanted to get his name out there. His agent wanted to get his name out there as soon as possible because Matta's had some health issues. He's been out of coaching for a year. Talking to Ole Miss when they did was a way to get people excited about Thad Matta and to signal that Thad Matta was interested in being a coach. He was not interested in being at Ole Miss, but it was a great conversation starter to get people to notice because there were no headlines about any other big-time coaches going to Ole Miss, and people said, oh, wait, Thad Matta's available, and he's interested in coaching still. He's not staying at home. He wants to get back into coaching, and that made a lot of schools perk their ears up, and I also think that's why Georgia took action when they did. Georgia went ahead and fired Fox over the weekend instead of waiting until Monday morning because they didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to talk to somebody like Thad Matta.
Yeah, I could see that, but now Thad Matta's moved on, and his name is in with the Georgia mix. I think that'd be a decent hire at Georgia, but Georgia also is publicly talking about going after a coach that Adam was talking about wanting to be at Alabama. Why don't you bring that up, Adam?
I think Rick Pitino has seen the error of his ways, and I don't think he would fall into the same trap again. I think he'd be a great hire at whoever would be willing to take him. And Alabama already has enough of a football coach rehab program. I think maybe it's time for the basketball team to do the same. So if you're out there and just let it lay.
If you're hiring Rick Pitino, you've got a lot of problems.
But while I agree he has an incredible basketball mind, there's so much emotional baggage with this man. I mean, Atlanta's got great lady of the night clubs. And I don't think that he would do well that close to Atlanta, to be honest with you. If you know what I mean.
There is not a good reason to hire Rick Pitino. There are plenty of other fish in the sea. Go hire you any other fish to be your coach. Don't hire Rick Pitino. And don't hire Rick Pitino's kid.
Well, the way you've been talking, Dave, I'm surprised you don't think we're at a point where we would do something that drastic. But
well, Alabama's already had issues with coaches going to strip clubs.
On the football side, for sure.
Right. We don't need it on the basketball side either. So
you don't think even Rich, Ben?
I wouldn't. After some of the issues that Minnesota's had this year, I would not be interested in anybody with the last name of Pitino, unless you could prove you're not actually related to Rick and Richard. No, that's a different branch of the Patinos. That's a no. Those Patinos, they're from New York. We're from New Jersey. Yeah, different Patinos.
Patinos.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how about, and this might be, throwing it out there a little bit, but UConn just fired Kevin Ollie, so why not get Georgia go after him?
Because I don't think Kevin Ollie did that good of a job at UConn. I get it. He won a national championship. I get it. But those were not his players. Those are not the guys that he brought in. And that was after they kind of like didn't have the most impressive season. It was almost like they got hot at exactly the perfect time. And I think that was a lot more the talent that was on the team than it was the head coach.
I feel like you look at some of these guys that are in the mix that aren't Thad Matta, like Eric Musselman from Nevada and coach who's at Charleston now. I mean, those guys there seem to be on the up, and it feels like UConn's coach is kind of trending in the wrong direction for what they want. But
yeah, I kind of agree with that. But also another name that going to UConn is one that you kind of wanted for Alabama, Ben. Mr. Dan Hurley. His name has been thrown in the UConn mix too. So the Hurley brothers might both be gone when Alabama's looking for a coach next year.
Alabama is not going to be looking for a coach next year. This is absolutely because if Alabama is looking for a coach next year, it's because some blue blood came and scooped up Avery Johnson. It's not going to be because they got rid of Avery Johnson.
Okay.
There.
And Ben, I think you and I had to settle a bet really quick too about the tournament that we can talk about on the other side of the break, because there was one conversation we had a couple weeks ago where you said 9 SEC teams would get in.
I said 9 SEC teams were possible,
and I said 6 or 7. So Price is Right rules. I win.
I think Adam maintained 8 the whole time. Really. I can go back and look at 4 or 5 episodes ago, but I'm pretty sure Adam was on there saying 8, right?
No, I wasn't on there, but I was in my car saying, "No, guys, it's 8. It's 8."
Yeah, I heard you. I heard you then, and
yeah.
You know what? I mean, I do all the editing, so I can easily just go add that into an old podcast. It'll be like, what was that? Where did that come from? That sounds like Adam. That sounds like Adam saying 8 wins.
Let's roll that tape.
Okay, well, we do have a lot to talk about on the other side of our break, because the guys have decided that we're going to do an entire tournament pick'em.
Woo!
Somehow, because last week's SEC tournament pick'em went so well. Okay. But we're going to take a break. I'm going to try to figure out if Avery Johnson's a good coach. I still maintain no. And I'm going to say it again this week because it worked last week. Y'all have a nice break. Have a nice Coke and a smile. And we'll see you on the other side here on Sideline Morning. Hey guys, it's Dave here. While we're taking a nice break from our Sideline Morning show, we want to talk to you about a group of podcasts that I think one of them at least will tickle your fancy. You heard me allude to a cruise that I went on last week. I went on a podcast cruise of this group of 4 podcasts that get together. They're good friends. One of them's the BLT Lunch Break. You've heard us talking about it. They talk about pretty much their lives, what they eat for lunch. They talk about Star Wars. They talk about DC. They talk about pretty much everything. It's Bart, Logan, and Tyler. A bunch of fun guys. They just have Great conversations about pretty much everything. The other one's going to be the Podcast. It's done by Will Haynes and the Grease. They talk about just whiskey. And it's more than just whiskey. They sit there and drink. They talk about life. It's a fun podcast to listen to. If you like some bourbon, listen to it because you learn a little bit about bourbon, and then you get some laughs drinking some bourbon with them. The other two are about Disney and Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. WDW Today, it's a great Disney podcast. They talk about their Disney, their times at Disney. They go around the world at Epcot. Right now, they're going around talking about each of the pavilions at Epcot. Each week they do that. They take listener questions on their live Facebook group. It's awesome. I'm part of that live Facebook group. Get in there. You can ask them questions. They will respond on the podcast. The other one is Scare Zone. It's Logan and Scotty Too Hottie from WWE fame, and I forget the other host, but he is from London, and he goes all the way over to Universal every year. It's awesome. They talk about all the houses, all the scare zones. They get you ready for Halloween Horror Nights. Go over there, listen to one of those four. I guarantee you'll find one that you like. My favorite of them all is BLT and WDW Today because it goes in right along with what I listen to. But please go listen to them. But also, don't forget, keep on listening to Sideline Warning, and we'll be back with y'all here in just a second.
And welcome back into Sideline Warning. We've got the most wonderful time of the year coming up.
Baseball?
Baseball's on the horizon, but the most wonderful time of the year. Is there a better 48 hours of sports, Dave, than the opening rounds of March Madness?
College football?
Day of baseball?
Basketball, baseball?
I like opening day. I love the World Series. I love football national championships. But, I mean, it's a pretty good day when you have the beginning of March Madness, right?
It is. It's sports on the TV all day, and I'll give it to you. It's that is one of my favorite 2 days of the year when it comes to sports. I'm not going to lie.
And you'll still have, like, spring training videos make it into Sports Center. You'll still see some baseball. So it's a good day.
Look. Anytime we can talk about Ronald Acuna starting to play on SportsCenter, I'm going to be excited. But that's for another couple shows. So, Ben, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we've got a huge bracket. We're going to pick the field of 64. We're not picking the first four because the first four, let's be honest, that's not really part of the tournament, is it, guys?
No, it's not.
Nope.
Now, I will say this. Had Alabama not beaten Auburn by 18 points, they probably would have been in the field of the first four or the first four there. And I would then be maintaining that is part of the tournament. But they're not. They're in the field of 64, and so that's what the real tournament is. There's no exceptions. The field of 68 is silly. We're purists here, and the field of 64 is what the real NCAA tournament is. So we're going to go ahead and start picking. We're going to pick region by region, round by round, and we're going to get to our final four, and then we'll come back and finalize things with our final four. And we're going to try to make this move as quickly as possible while still also being a little bit on the entertaining side. So, guys, are you ready? Do you have your picks ready?
Let's do this. Adam, you want to start, or Ben, you want to start? Who's starting?
We will start off with the South region. Adam, are you ready? Why don't you go for it?
Yeah, I've got, moving on, Virginia, Creighton, Kentucky, Arizona, Miami, Tennessee, Nevada, and Cincinnati. And I got to be honest, the only reason I picked Creighton in this one is because Warren Buffett has his Berkshire Hathaway Bracket Challenge, and he's doubled the payout if Creighton wins it all. So I think they at least make it one round. I can't say that they'll make it any further than that, but I think they'll give everybody something to be excited about for at least one game.
He's the Oracle of Omaha. I'm not sure he's the Oracle of brackets, though.
That's right.
Now, did I hear that you didn't have one upset at all? So that was all the higher seeds going in that bracket?
Yes, but only because of that. The Kansas State Creighton, I was on the fence, but Creighton I went just because of the excitement of $2 million instead of $1 million.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but, it's bracketology. It's not a science, right?
There you go. You got Jerry Palm, you got Joe Lunardi, you got Adam Russell. I like it.
I'm in an esteemed company now. I love it.
Well, you were in an esteemed company with Dave Adams and Ben Foster, but let's pump the brakes because I think that us three are a little bit better than Palm and Lenardi.
Something like that.
So,
I'm just saying, Dave, Palm and Lenardi had Alabama making the tournament.
not until when I was saying I was completely unbuckled, they did not.
All right, Dave, who do you have winning the opening round games in the South region?
So mine sounds a lot like Adams, except for one. I got Virginia, Creighton, Kentucky, Arizona, Miami, Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and Cincinnati. I got what I like here is Tennessee Wright State's going to be a great game, but I think Tennessee is going to come out, and I hate saying this, but I think Tennessee is going to be the star of the SEC in this tournament. Also, that Texas Nevada game is going to be really good too, and I just think Texas is peaking a little bit better, and I think Texas is going to come out and win that one.
It scares me when I think too much like you guys. And I've got very similar picks here. I've got UVA, I've got Creighton, Kentucky, Arizona, Miami, Tennessee, Texas, and Cincinnati. And
so just like me.
It's scary, I know. Like next I may start hating on Avery Johnson. No, I'm not that far off base. All right.
You'll have to change your profile picture for that.
Yeah, the only upset I've picked is Texas beating Nevada, which makes no sense because Nevada is a much better team than Texas. So I don't really know what I'm doing, but I just trusted my gut. I didn't overthink it, and I just went for it. So that's what I went for, and that's how I picked it. So what do you guys have in the South region for the next round? The teams making it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I've got Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Cincinnati.
Get out of my head, Adam Russell.
Let's hear it. Say it. Say the same thing over again. It's fine.
Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Cincinnati. The only upset is Kentucky realizing that they're a tournament team, and I got Kentucky. My rule of thumb is no matter how young Kentucky is, always have Kentucky going into the round of 16. Just because Kentucky is the logo of Kentucky. If you put that on your chest, you wind up being great when it comes to tournament time. You and I talked about this at the SEC tournament play. Kentucky remembers their Kentucky and starts going on a roll when it comes to tournament time. So you always have Kentucky going to the Sweet 16.
Well, unless you're picking my bracket, because that's not what I have, and that's the only place I differ from you guys. I've got Virginia, I've got Arizona, I've got Tennessee, and I've got Cincinnati. I want to believe that Kentucky is Sweet 16 caliber, Dave, but I've seen Ayton play. I've seen how good Arizona is, and I also know Sean Miller has kind of got a little bit of a vendetta right now. So I think Arizona could do a lot of damage in this tournament because they've got a lot to prove, and I think they have the best player in college basketball in DeAndre Ayton.
Well, it just depends on if the paycheck has gone through the bank this week. If Ayton plays well.
Well, if the check's been cashed, the team's going to look pretty good.
Okay.
All right, who do you guys have advancing to the Elite Eight?
I've got Virginia and Tennessee because I have a Ben Foster rule. And Ben Foster says Tennessee's the best team in the SEC. And I don't know. I think this is one of the ones where if there's a team that's going to play out of their minds, you think about that old Bear Bryant video where he says if you usually play at a 75, your competitor's in an 80, but you catch them on a bad day. I think this is going to be that bad day for Cincinnati.
Well, I picked Virginia and Tennessee.
No, you didn't.
I did. I like I said before, I think Tennessee is going to be the best team in the SEC coming out in this tournament. I don't think they're going to go very far, but I've got them in the Elite Eight.
Here's something I would love to see. We're already in this habit of playing the Final Four in these large arenas that are really, football stadiums and things like that. I think that if Virginia and Tennessee make it to the Elite Eight, they should have to do like Tennessee and Virginia Tech did for football. They should take that basketball game and play it at Bristol Motor Speedway. Are you guys in favor of that?
I am, but without the trophy ceremony.
Oh, come on. No, let them have that. I mean, that's all that Tennessee football won this year.
Just move the basketball game to the NASCAR track and see what happens.
Actually, hey, Adam, isn't that – no, I think that might be Bristol weekend.
Even better, have them play in the middle of the race.
That's awesome. Good idea.
If there was ever one shining moment, that would be it. A basketball game in the middle of a NASCAR race. Would any sporting event for the next 10 years get better TV ratings?
No,
not at all.
There's no way.
It would be the absolute best thing.
Not unless you put an 18-hole golf course where Tiger and Lefty were playing during the middle of a race.
4. Okay. Well, for my Elite Eight, I'm differing from you guys a good bit. This is where we're finally getting some separation. I've got Arizona, because you always pick Arizona to go to the Elite Eight. You always pick Arizona to go at least to the Elite Eight. And I've got them playing Cincy because I think Cincinnati is just a really good basketball team right now. And I've seen Tennessee; they play great, but when they go up against when they went up against Kentucky on Sunday afternoon, they couldn't hang. And I get it, you get tired and stuff like that. I think Tennessee has been very fortunate this year. I think they're a very good team, but I don't know that they are ready to hang with a team as good as Cincinnati. So I've got Cincy playing Arizona in the Elite Eight. All right. Who do you guys have advancing, winning the South region? Who's your Final Four team?
All right, Adam, on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Virginia.
Said it with the accent. There you go. But this is one of 2 brackets for me that follows the same storyline where the SEC makes a really good push, but then they run up against someone from a better overall conference that's just like a buzzsaw. They can't make it past it. So I've got Virginia.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind, Virginia's absolutely the best team in this bracket. They've played the best all year, and I don't see that slowing down. Virginia wins this, and shocker preview, Virginia wins the whole thing in mine.
Easy, Dave. Easy.
Thanks, folks.
Easy,
Wow.
Dave. Easy, Dave. Calm down. Well, Dave is throwing spoilers out there. I want to believe that Virginia is as good as everybody says they are. There's a ton of evidence that says Virginia is the best team in the country. But I have had so many years where I've picked Virginia to be in the Final Four. They're definitely the best defensive team in the country. I give them that. They are the best defensive team. And I get it, defense wins championships. But there's something about Virginia where they just never make it as far as I think they're going to go. That's why I've got them falling to Arizona. And so with my matchup with Arizona and Cincinnati, I've got Cincinnati. I think they're a more well-rounded team. I've got Cincinnati making the Final Four.
Okay.
So it's a little different than you guys, but that's okay. Different can be good. So that's the South region. Let's go ahead and pick the West region now. That's the one where Xavier is the 1 seed. Adam, why don't you go ahead and give us your first round wins?
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not going to excite you again, Dave, and I hope it doesn't match perfectly. But Xavier, FSU, Ohio State, Gonzaga, Houston, Michigan, A&M, and UNC.
Okay, we don't match.
Okay, good.
All right. So I got Xavier, Missouri, Ohio State, Gonzaga, Houston, Michigan, Providence, and North Carolina.
Wow.
I just don't think Texas A&M is good enough to beat Providence. Providence is a decent team. A&M's limping into the tournament after Colin Sexton went off on them. I think Providence is going to win that game. So I've got 2 10 seeds. Actually, so far, I've got 2 10 seeds moving on.
Well, Dave, I also have 2 10 seeds going on because in my round, I've got Xavier winning, Florida State, South Dakota State with my 12-5 upset. I've got Gonzaga winning. I've got San Diego State, the other SDSU, winning in an 11-6 upset. I've got Michigan winning. I've got Providence winning, so that's my other 10 that I picked. And then I've got UNC. I picked a lot of upsets here. I thought I was picking too conservatively in the South, so I went with a lot more upsets here in the West. I think that there's just some teams that match up better. So that's what I went with. You always have to have at least one 12-5, right?
Supposedly.
Sure.
You got to have at least
have an SDSU rule.
I have an SDSU rule too. That's for sure. But I just thought this seemed like the opportunity for South Dakota State. I feel like Ohio State has overachieved, and I feel like South Dakota State just kind of always has this magic about them, whether they're playing football or not, playing basketball. They've got this kind of overachiever vibe. So if Ohio State's underachieving and South Dakota State's overachieving, that's my upset. So that's the 12-5. Who do you guys have in the next round making it to the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I've got Xavier, Gonzaga, Michigan, and UNC.
Hey, guess what, Adam?
What?
Exactly the same.
Yes.
Xavier,
I knew the
Gonzaga.
last one was going to be the same because you want to put that jersey on.
I might put the jersey on. You never know. But I've got Xavier, Gonzaga, Michigan, North Carolina. I hate picking chalk. I hate picking the high seeds winning that, but I don't see any room for an upset going into the Sweet 16.
I feel like there's just so much parity going on this year that it really is probably safe to stick with some of the bigger tried and true schools. I think there may not be that many upsets this year. So for my Sweet 16, I've got Xavier and Gonzaga, just like you guys. Then I've got an upset though. San Diego State, my preferred SDSU, making it to the Sweet 16 over Michigan, a little bit of a surprise. And then I've got UNC making it in because you really just can't pick against UNC that early in the bracket.
Right.
So that's my Sweet 16. What do you guys have for the Elite Eight there?
I have Gonzaga, just because I love saying the name. And I actually have Michigan beating UNC.
Well, who do you go ahead and tell us your Final Four of that? Let's.
I think Michigan makes it to the Final Four.
So you got Michigan in the Final Four. So
yep.
Here's my thinking. I've got Xavier and I've got North Carolina. So I was actually ready because I've watched enough Carolina games. I was ready to actually push that Michigan button and say I want Michigan into my Elite Eight. But I hung out with a good friend on the cruise I went on, and he's a big time Michigan fan. I said, "Hey, looks like you guys got a good team." He said, "Yeah. I'm going to ride this wave, but they're going to disappoint me at some point in time." And so Michigan fan is not exactly saying that they're as good as they think they are, so I'm going to put North Carolina there.
There's something about Jim Boeheim, though, where he just manages to get these guys to overachieve at just the right time. There's so many times where people want to write off Michigan, and then they go and win the conference tournament. They go and win a bunch of games they shouldn't win in the big tournament. So it's, and a good coach can somehow make some magic go a long way. So I don't fault anybody that's got Michigan going far, but even though I've got them falling in an upset kind of early. With my picks, I've got Gonzaga facing off with UNC, and you just don't pick against UNC in a game like that. So I'm going to take North Carolina there, and that's going to make it into my Final Four.
Yeah, by the way, I didn't say who wins that Xavier Carolina game, but y'all all know that my other colors are Tar Heel blue, so we got the Tar Heels in the Final Four.
All right, so that gets us solved there in the West region. Let's go pick the Midwest region. This is the one that winds up in Omaha, and it's the one where Kansas is the number 1 seed. So what do you guys have going on in the first round?
Yeah, I've got Kansas, NC State, Clemson, Auburn, TCU, Michigan State, Rhode Island, and Duke.
All right. So we actually differ quite a bit in this one, actually, Adam.
Yeah.
I've got Kansas moving on, of course. Seton Hall, because I think that they're actually playing well.
Yeah.
I've got Clemson beating New Mexico State. And here is my upset of the tournament.
Imagine that.
And it's not just because it's Auburn.
True to form. Dave is so true to form. I love it when Dave is true to form.
But so I actually was going to pick Auburn, but I did some stupid things last night. I started studying this a little bit, and I started listening to the Talking Heads.
Oh, that was your first mistake.
Right. So first off, you look at Auburn as very, very, very shorthanded. They're not built for a tournament run. We saw that in the SEC tournament, and I mean, we know they've only got 7 scholarship players playing right now. But then all the talking heads also say that the big upset's going to come in this. And, when they say Auburn's going to lose, I'm easily swayed. And so I picked Charleston to win this one. But then you got TCU moving on, Michigan State moving on, and a third number 10 seed moving on, I got Oklahoma playing Duke.
You're believing in Trae Young there.
Wow.
I'm believing in Trae Young.
Well, for my picks, I've got Kansas, Seton Hall, because you know I would normally go with NC State, but I just feel like Seton Hall's had a good year, and so I'm going with them there. I've got New Mexico State. That's my other 12-5 upset. I've got New Mexico State winning. They're going to play Auburn. Then there will be Syracuse, because I've got them overcoming Arizona State in the playing game. That gives them a little momentum. That gets them past TCU because you just trust Boeheim to get the job done. So picking Syracuse, picking Michigan State because I want to see Boeheim versus Izzo. That's great. Then Rhode Island and Duke. Because I want to see a Hurley take on Krzyzewski. So I'm picking good coaching matchups. That's essentially what I wanted here. I was going with intuitively what's going to be a really fun coaching matchup. So that's what got me there in the first round. Who do you guys have in the Sweet 16?
They've got Kansas, Auburn, Michigan State, and Duke.
Yeah, I've got Kansas, Clemson, Michigan State, and Duke because I had Clemson playing Charleston, and there's no way I'm picking a 13 going into the Sweet 16.
Well, I felt like I needed a little bit of action here, but I also wanted to trust all the traditional powers. So I've got Kansas, I've got New Mexico State as one of my Cinderellas making it into the Sweet 16. I've got Michigan State, and I've got Duke. So I've watched New Mexico State actually like back in December, and they're just one of those teams that I said, hey, make a note of this team. Don't forget them. They're the kind of team that can really be a spoiler and surprise some folks and overachieve and make it into the Sweet 16. So I kind of had that filed away for a while now, and that's where I'm at. So that's my Cinderella there. So who do you guys have? And I needed an upset over Auburn, right? It had to work it in at some point.
Thank you for that.
I had one.
Dave's came even earlier than mine, so I knew you'd find a way to outdo me. So what do you guys have happening for the Elite Eight?
Yeah, I've got a snoozer that no one sees. Would be surprised by Kansas and Duke. I mean, I just can't see it being anybody else.
Who you got winning that one?
I've got a Duke winning that one.
Yeah, we're exactly the same. Kansas and Duke. And my rule of thumb is if you think Kansas is going to make it in the Final Four, they're not. Kansas always finds a way to fall, usually in those big games. So Kansas and Duke, and as much as it pains me being a closet UNC fan, I got to put Duke in the Final Four.
Yeah, I have a kind of rule about Duke, the same thing. If the matchup's not just obvious that there's a reason the other team would win, I always pick Duke. So,
yeah.
What about you, Ben?
Well, this is where I get a little separation from you guys. I've got Kansas, but I've got Michigan State because I have the Tom Izzo rule that says always pick Michigan State to go one more game than you think they're going to go. And so, in a tough matchup against Duke, I kind of think Duke's a little flawed. They've won their games. They're 26-7. Krzyzewski's one of the greatest coaches of all time. But I just don't know that Duke's got enough to go all the way. So I think Michigan State is a better assembled team, and I think when push comes to shove, they're going to be able to handle Duke. So I've got Kansas and Michigan State, and then I've got Michigan State making the Final Four.
Okay.
So that solves the Midwest region, and now we've got the East region. That's the one Alabama's in, and it's the one where Villanova is the 1 seed. So, Adam, start us off. What do you have happening in the first round?
Yeah, I've got Villanova. I'm going to skip the Virginia Tech-Alabama game. West Virginia, Wichita State, Florida, Texas Tech, Arkansas, and Purdue. And for Virginia Tech-Alabama, I can't see Alabama making it past a team that beat the type of teams that Virginia Tech at times has had success against off and on throughout the year. So I think Alabama doesn't make it past the first round.
Okay. So I'll do kind of the same formula. I've got Villanova. I'll skip this game for a second. West Virginia. So I have no 5-12 upsets, by the way.
That was your second mistake, Dave.
Well, here we go. I got another mistake coming. You got Wichita State. You got Florida, Texas Tech. I've got Butler. So every 10 seed has moved on in the brackets. I have every 10 seed moving on.
You like those 10s?
I kind of do. They gave us a good matchup this year. And I like Purdue. So I've got the Virginia Tech-Alabama game. I'm picking Alabama but here's why. Both of these teams are highly inconsistent. Alabama beat Texas A&M when they were top 10. Alabama beat Auburn when they were top 10. Alabama beat Florida at home, or at Florida's home. Alabama beat Tennessee at home. Virginia Tech beat Duke, but then they lost bad to Wake Forest. So it depends on which team shows up. I think Alabama's riding a little higher right now, so I've got Alabama winning this game.
I'm not mad at you for that, Dave, but they didn't just beat Duke. They beat Duke, Clemson, Virginia, and UNC.
Well, that's very true.
So they're inconsistent, but it feels like they're inconsistent at the right time, whereas we tended to be inconsistent when we needed to be at our best. So I could have gone either way. I hear your argument. So.
All right, interesting picks, guys. For mine, I went with Villanova in the first round. I'll save it just like you guys did. I've got West Virginia. I've got Wichita State. I've got UCLA. So I'm liking these teams from the play-in games. I think UCLA is going to take out St. Bonaventure, and then they're going to beat Florida. And then I've got Texas Tech. I've got Arkansas, and I've got Purdue. So those are my picks. And then Virginia Tech, Alabama. I mean, I got to pick the Tide, right? Right?
You're not.
I'm picking Alabama. It's been too long to make it to the tournament. It's also been too long without a win in the tournament. Alabama's going to pick one up right here against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is going to have some trouble with Alabama's defense, and Alabama's going to have everybody going at the same time for the first time in a long time, and that's going to really pay off for the Tide. So I've got Alabama winning this one.
You bring up a good point. When is Alabama's last win in the tournament?
It's been a few moments.
Was it the Elite Eight year? I think it was.
Things I should know but don't. Yeah, I believe it's got to be 2004. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it would. Wow. All right. So there you go. Adam has that streak moving on.
Yeah, so in the next round, I've got Villanova moving on with West Virginia, Florida, and Purdue.
We're exactly the same on that one. I can't see Alabama beating a 1 seed. Villanova's going to move on. West Virginia, Florida, Purdue. Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to pick somebody to upset a 1 seed early, right? And why not do it with the Tide? Maybe everything's clicking at the right time, and maybe things really go Alabama's way. I'm going to take Alabama to beat Villanova in a huge upset, the talk of the tournament.
Does somebody have the white coat ready for him?
Homer. Sorry, what?
Somebody had to do it. It might as well be me. Somebody had to do it. It might as well be me.
Hey, you're all in, man. More power to you.
I've got Alabama in the Sweet 16. They're going to play against West Virginia because I have the Huggy Bear rule, which is never pick against Bob Huggins up to the Sweet 16. So if Bob Huggins is coaching in a game, you always pick his team to make it at least to the Sweet 16. So whoever else is in the way, they're falling by the wayside because Bob Huggins is going to be in there, and that's how he's going to get past Wichita State. Then for my other picks, I've got Texas Tech and Purdue. So that's my Sweet 16. Guys, go ahead and lay the Elite Eight on me.
Yeah, I've got Villanova and Purdue. This is the same kind of thing where Arkansas and Florida both make a pretty good push, but they're on that end of the bracket where Purdue is, and I don't think that we can take them this year in the SEC. So Purdue faces Villanova, and then I've got Villanova making it to the Final Four.
All right, so I've got Villanova and Purdue, and then I've got Purdue making it to the Final Four. Kind of that is really a homer pick. I forget. I think it's Taylor Haas is from Hartselle, Alabama, here in North Alabama. I actually know Taylor's aunt, and I worked with her for a while, and he's a great kid. It's cool to see a Southern kid like that make it on the big time, playing in the Big Ten, possibly going to the NBA. So just kind of for selfish reasons. And they're a good team. I've got Purdue winning that.
I like where your head's at, Dave. I think that's really good. But I'm not going to agree with you guys. I've got Texas Tech beating Purdue. So I've got Texas Tech making the Elite Eight, where they're going to be facing a team from Tuscaloosa. That's right. I'm doing it. I have lost my mind, but I'm confident and I'm riding high on the tide. Alabama is making the Elite Eight for the second time in school history. You heard it right here on Sideline Warning. Ben picked it. Nobody else did. Bama is in the Elite Eight. And that's where they fall to Texas Tech, who will be advancing on to the Final Four.
And this is why Ben wanted us to go last, because he could be like, look at me, I did it. I'm crazy, I did it. I think he's the one having the little Coke you talked about in the break last week there.
He's not having the drink of Coke. He's having the breathable time of Coke. I'm worried, Adam. I think I need to call 911 and send them to Ben's house in Birmingham.
It's not March Madness without a little madness.
There you go. Who needs 12 fives when you got Bama making it all the way?
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. Here we go.
Wait. So Final Four, Ben?
It's time to pick the Final Four. Adam, just go ahead and refresh us on your Final Four. Pick the two matchups and pick the championship. How's it finish up, Adam?
Yeah, I've got Virginia, Michigan, and then Villanova, Duke, and I've got the Virginia versus Villanova in the final, 2-1 seeds facing up each other, and then everybody talks about how boring sports are because the number ones always make it, and we'll hear all of that again. So I've got Virginia and Villanova facing off.
Who you got winning?
Virginia. And you have to say it that way, Virginia, when you pick
Virginia. So I've got Virginia versus North Carolina, and then Purdue versus Duke. I wanted to have a battle for Tobacco Row final, but I'm not going to do that because y'all would all call me a homer. So I've got Virginia playing Purdue, and I've got my champion being Virginia.
All right, interesting picks.
Should we get a drum roll here, Ben? Because I feel like there's something magical going on.
No. Well, I told you Texas Tech will be in the Final Four. I told you Texas Tech will be in the Final Four. I backed off from the I walked right up to the edge of insanity and did not jump. So my Final Four is Cincinnati versus UNC and then Texas Tech versus Michigan State. So that's what I've got picked. I'm going to take UNC in the championship game versus Michigan State. And what did I say about the Tom Izzo rule? You always pick Izzo to go one more game than you think he is. I think he's going all the way, so I think he's winning it all. This is it. I'm picking Michigan State. In spite of all the craziness that's happened to the school this year, all the difficult situations, all of the unanswered questions from Tom Izzo, I think he's a good basketball coach outside of other things, and I think Michigan State's going to win the national championship.
So Mr. H to the Izzo is going to win it.
That is where I'm going. Tom Izzo and Michigan State, the Spartans, are going to come out on top.
So before we go into the sideline warnings, I want everybody to right now open up your Facebook or open up your Twitter. Find the Sideline Warning Twitter or the SW the show on Facebook. I have put a link on either Twitter or Facebook to get you into the Sideline Warning Tournament Pick'em group. Right now, there are already 10 people in. Adam and Ben will get in. That will make 12. Let's get everybody that listens to this show into this tournament Pick'em. And let's see who really is the guru of Pick'em. Let's see if y'all can beat me. Because when it came to football, no one could. So let's see if anybody can actually beat me. I'm betting that it won't happen.
What are you betting that it won't happen? Hang on now. Wait, that's an interesting statement.
Well, there might be something. We still need to get Cameron on because he beat everybody else in football. So we still need to get Cameron on for one segment. I'll bring. We can bring somebody on if you can beat all three of us. We'll bring you on as a fourth co-host for a week. I think that's a good little bet. What do you think, guys?
I think that's reasonable. I think that is. Because I mean, nobody's going to beat me after all the points I get from Alabama making it to the Elite Eight.
That's true.
So I think that's a safe bet to make.
Well, let's remember, Ben, you brought us down when it came to football, and Adam, you were up there when it came to football, but Ben brought us down. So But basketball is your sport, isn't it?
I'm just saying. This is a bracket I'm very confident in. I feel good about this bracket.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me what else you feel good with in your sideline warning, Ben.
All right, for my sideline warning, it's a brief bit of applause for NCAA officiating, which is not something I normally do, but I am applauding the NCAA and their decision to keep one Teddy Valentine out of the NCAA tournament. You want to talk about schools that didn't make it, and I'm really sorry, Southern Cal. I really thought you should have been in there, but I'm sorry, Notre Dame. I'm sorry, Louisville. It would have been nice to have you guys. I'm sorry about that. But I'm not talking about teams. I'm talking about referees. And Teddy Valentine, TV Teddy, is not in the NCAA tournament. And that is a good thing for basketball. Teddy Valentine, if you don't know him, look him up. He is just a horrendous ref. He makes egregious calls on a regular basis. And not only does he make egregious calls, he also adds theatrics to his officiating, to his refereeing, that draw extra attention to himself. That's why they call him TV Teddy. And this year, TV Teddy went too far. In a game that UNC was playing in, he called a foul on Joel Berry, and then he turned away from Joel Berry and wouldn't even hear his comments, and was so dramatic that made an impression on the NCAA, and they said, well, we're not going to let Teddy Valentine be in the NCAA tournament. Other conferences outside of the ACC complained about Teddy Valentine, and this time, finally, they are taking a bad ref and keeping him out of the tournament, and that is good for basketball. Teddy Valentine, you can go look at this. The ESPN's got an article on it. He's trying to defend himself, and he defends himself by saying, hey, I made it better. After I blew the call on Joel Berry, I made up for it by pulling him out of a fight and keeping the situation from escalating, and I didn't call something on him later that I should have called on him. That's the problem. He is a terrible ref. And he even admits it when he points to things like that to justify his poor officiating. So good riddance, Teddy Valentine. I'm really glad you did not make the tournament.
Well, that's just asinine. A referee should not admit that he blew a call.
Well, blew two calls technically because he didn't call him on the second one. Yeah,
that's crazy. All right, Adam, go for it.
All right, I don't think a lot of people who know me will be surprised to hear that my sideline warning is for UCF. Oh,
wow, shocker.
Right? So the Florida House passed a bill in the last couple of weeks that proposes a undefeated champions, and I'm putting that in air quotes, license plate. But that was only after a last-minute change replaced the words national champions. And so let me be clear, I'm all for the bill. It actually gives us license plates for Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn. So I think it's a huge step forward. But I think to UCF, I have to say enough already, because there's a very specific way college football awards a national champion and a national championship, and it's not follow the leader logic based off of what team you beat in a bowl and who they beat in the regular season. There's a process. And so why don't you turn it into a marketing ploy? Florida State says unconquered, so why can't UCF say undefeated? And now they can use the license plate and the fact they're undefeated. Just stop it with the national champion stuff, because when we get to a point where politicians in the Florida House are changing words to match reality, when politicians are showing more logic than a fan base and a university administration, I think we're officially in the twilight zone when I see that happening. So I'm really hopeful that Alabama's design will have something about the 17th national championship, because my vanity license plate will read not UCF when it says Alabama national champions on it.
That's great. I'll tell you what, I actually wore some Alabama stuff when I was down in Orlando this last weekend, and I got some dirty looks. In fact, I had some, the Delta check-in guy. Of course, I was all decked out in Alabama stuff. The Delta check-in guy, see, I'm a UCF grad. What do you think about us claiming the national championship? I just looked at him, of course, blank stare. He said, well, they're never going to give us a chance, so we have to take it. I said, do you really think that we even think that you're a national championship because you beat Auburn? Congratulations. Most of the time, everybody does that.
Yeah, we had to seize our moment to claim something that's not ours. That's funny.
Yeah, basically, That's exactly it. Well, it's not ours, but we had to claim it anyway. Just take my bag and put it on the right plane, please. Right. So my sideline warning is going to be twofold. I got two things. First off, everybody needs to realize that Alabama is more than just men's sports. Basketball is getting there. Football is a huge sport in Alabama. But Alabama, when it comes to spring sports, Alabama dominates in softball. And my hat goes off to one Patrick Murphy. Probably one of the most dominant softball coaches in recent history. He got his 1,000th win on Friday coaching Alabama. Plus, we have to give it to pitcher Alexia Sario, who, keep in mind, softball only plays 7 innings. Struck out 27 batters on her way to a no-hitter. Dominant pitcher. No, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. But a lot of strikeouts. She basically every out was a strikeout.
I was doing math there, Dave, and I was like, wait, well, there must have been some extra innings. Carry the 4.
Does not compute.
Does not compute. I was a broadcasting major, man. So she 21 strikeouts. Where did I get 7? Sorry. 21 strikeouts. Every one of the outs was a strikeout. Basically, the fielders had to twiddle their thumbs in the outfield. Good job. If you're an Alabama fan and you're not following Alabama softball, shame on you, because Alabama softball is an incredible product. One of the sports that Alabama will make the postseason, guaranteed. Alabama is the North Carolina and Duke when it comes to softball. But my other sideline warning goes to one Benjamin Foster.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
I said this before, and I said it in kind of passing, but Ben Foster, don't you dare ever call my Alabama fandom in question again. You say I'm not. You say I'm not an Alabama fan because I choose to watch another team in basketball sometimes, but I didn't pay $75 just to watch one basketball game for North Carolina. I don't believe in this Alabama team, but I paid $75 to watch them play Texas A&M. So don't you dare ever call my fandom into question, because I believe I watched the game on the high seas and you didn't. So, therefore, Ben, I would say I'm probably a bigger Bama basketball fan than you.
I drove to St. Louis and back in the same 24-hour period.
I was waiting for that.
So we'll call it even.
I was physically present for one of their SEC conference games, SEC tournament games.
Okay, so it's a tie. All right, guys. So there you have it. There's our sideline warnings. There's our bracketology. There's our talk about basketball, the state of basketball now. Now it's up to you. Go find us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/SW The Show. Find us on Twitter, SW The Show. Get into this tournament pick'em league. See if you can beat all 3 of us, because if you can, we'll let you come on as a 4th co-host for 1 week. You can follow me on Twitter, DAdams419. You can follow Ben, the Ben Foster. Adam, you need to get a Twitter, man. We're going to get you
working on it.
Okay, we're going to get you on it.
And an additional and a bonus offer from the podcast I'm putting out there right now. If you should be in Pittsburgh for the game and you've listened to this podcast, simply refer to this part of the podcast and I will buy you a beer or a Coca-Cola.
There you go. So if you are in that neck of the woods, come up and find the Ben Foster on Twitter. You can probably DM him, slide into his DMs, and he'll buy you a Coke or a beer. And he'll probably give you a smile.
Any listener of the show that is in Pittsburgh or comes to Pittsburgh, I will buy you a beverage.
There you go. We are now on Instagram. I need to give Ben the Instagram information because we have one picture on Instagram, guys. We need to get that taken care of. So, Ben, you're going to be going to the most important game in Alabama basketball of the year. So I'm going to give you that login so you can take some pictures for me. But that is SW The Show at Instagram. Also, email the show, sidelinewarningpodcast@gmail.com. And please, 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 like the show, subscribe to the show on Gmail or iTunes, and please rate us. Right now we're at 5 stars. We need to stay there, but we need more than just the 7 ratings. And leave a comment. Tell us why you like us. If you don't like us, email us. Don't put it on there. But just let us know some other way. But we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And we will see you guys next week here on Sideline. Roll Tide. There you go.
Sounded pretty good.
So is this where we cut the audio of me saying 8 SEC teams?
Yes. Adam, we're going to go ahead and you'll be on in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I've been looking at it, and I really think there's a strong chance that there could be 8 teams from the SEC making the NCAA tournament this year.
No way will there be 8 teams. Absolutely not.
Well,
there will not be 8 teams. It's got to be 9.
Dave?
No, there's going to be 6.
You guys are crazy. It's 8, trust me.